I like to think that if the Iraqi militia or Jaysh al-Mahdi, if any of those assholes really wanted to take Greg out, they would have just put a massive rubber dildo in the middle of Route Uranium.
As long as they painted an R2-D2 theme, done. I'm dead. I'm yours and I'm dead.
Welcome back to Security Halt Ranger D Part 2. Never mind the dogs barking in the background. We are filming live.
You guys do this. I'm going to fucking go handle that.
In what's now new
10-1.
East Berlin.
Go and push talk shit.
Welcome back, everyone. Ranger D, you have quite the story. Part 2, Part 1, to recap shortly. Young Ranger D finds himself in quite a conundrum with a trunk full of narcotics and having to come back from that. Successfully gets back to his platoon, successfully makes it through deployments. You're at Ranger Regiment now. You're an established NCO. And take us from there, good sir.
Yeah, so I think where I left off was, after the Korea conundrum, I was asked to. They wanted me to come back and take the platoon, but to do that, they wanted me to go spend time. It's kind of like SWIC time, right? So you go spend time as a RAS cadre, and I would say my time there was probably the most rewarding, and I might have covered that in the last one. And then on top of that, I got handed the CST program. So I ran. So the cultural support team members were the females that every platoon would have go out with them, because I'm not going to go into TTPs, but there's certain things that they can get from people that I would rather not handle. Well, I mean, as long as they wear gloves.
You watch your mouth. CSTs get shit on a lot, but I have to say thank you to guys like yourself and the rest of the individuals that worked so damn hard to develop that program and gave us insanely motivated, dedicated individuals that kicked ass, worked real fucking hard, that are often just lampooned and made fun of. Whether you were talking about meme accounts making fun of situations, and I get it. Anytime a program like that gets started up from fucking scratch from nothing, you have so many different waves and iterations, but every CST that I worked with was professional, hardworking, and they wanted to fucking get after it. I'm not going to say any names, but man, it's such an unsung hero. Like we say that a lot, we hear it a lot, but no, seriously, those gals, just like anybody else, like you can have fucking rock stars and you can have fucking duds, but a lot of the people I worked with were fucking rock stars, and I am grateful to have had them. I'm grateful to have met a lot, and I think that the program could have been done better, because there's a lot of people that had a passion and heart for what they were doing, and then I find out like, oh no, dude, like once we're done with this, like we go back and then it's back to like what I was doing before. It's like, so shout out to all of them, and thank you specifically, Ranger D, for putting in that time and putting in that work and mentoring and developing. It's a hard unsung heroes like you to get it done.
Well, I mean, I leave it up to the women, man. My last.
Wait a second. Did you say there were women?
What?
Yeah.
What
the? Yeah, dude.
No.
Prettiest dudes ever.
And then I got emails forward from my old platoon sergeant, or my old platoon, the platoon sergeant. That I was like, hey man, how's a 60 out? Like, bro, did you teach her to come off the back of the bird and start shooting with the boys? And I was like, well, I mean, I taught them all. Literally, I ran them through literally all the drills that I'd run a private through, and she crushed it. I'm not. That this one in particular was and I'm not going to say it. So this one in particular was people knew about her from TV. and then she ended up leaving the television scene, commissioning, and then coming into the Army. And then
Say it.
yeah, our
Caitlyn Jenner, Major Caitlyn Jenner.
That's what I
now.
was waiting for.
Yeah.
Kardashian, don't worry about it.
Yeah, dude. And those are all pulled from for us. They were all pulled from civil affairs, right? So they already went through a full selection process before they could even come to us. And then we ran them through everything. We ran them through boards. So there was a specific. I want to tell this story real quick. There's a specific time that I was evaluating one of the candidates, and I told her beforehand. So she was super strong. Catholic woman, right? And she always wore her cross. And I was like, "Hey, ma'am, here's the deal. Like, I understand, and I'm a believer in God and stuff like that. It's like there's cultural differences that you're about to run into, and the second somebody sees that, they're gonna completely shut down on you." And I was like, "You need to take it off." And she was like, "Roger that, Sergeant." Sure as shit. Red light comes on. They start doing SSE, and I told the Op 4, I was like, "Hey, if you see anything that looks like a cross around any one of their necks, I want you to start screaming at them and calling them Muslim killers." And dude, as soon as her red light went on and they saw that, that Op 4 pointed right at it and started just screaming. And I'm talking, we're in like enclosed.
Fucking crusading son of a bitch,
bro. Yeah, you crusader, you Muslim killer, blah blah blah. And I dinged her on it. She ended up working out, and that whole crew that did get selected. We did have like 2 or 3 non-selects. And I'm not going to go into all that, but the ones that did get selected, they saw some of the heaviest combat, I think, at the time, 2017 to 2019, that anybody did. And they weren't just Ranger Pure. They were with the strike forces, but they also went out with the ODAs. And they were out with ODAs that took casualties. They were out with strike forces that took casualties from regiment. And then, unfortunately, like 2 of them were there whenever Major Taylor got killed on Scorpion. They were doing a ruck and were right there, like kind of when it happened. And, kudos to them. They were able to work through all the different stuff. And, like it was I'm always for women within the unit. And it's funny because I will say things like, I actually pushed out there's a banner that went around because I guess the 100th woman has graduated Ranger School, right? So they put out a banner for women's whatever month, and 2 of the women on that banner are like really close friends of mine. And then there's another one that, so when I was a RAS cadre, I started to get the first, few female enlisted that were coming through RAS 1, right? So we called it a safety valve, right? So we would have the one woman who was the first one in regiment come down and explain to them, because I mean, they're in open bay, like they're treated like everybody else. You're in an open bay scenario, they'll put up whoobies or whatever you got to do whenever they take showers and stuff like that. But like, you got to understand the environment you're in. And that woman in particular, I mean, she, to this day, she's like a sister to me. I talk to her once a week. And then the other one was the first, infantry PL that actually took a platoon in 375. And shout out to her, Shanna Koss. She's crushing it. She's a company commander up at 10th Mountain Division. And dude, I just talked to her yesterday. Like, her and I, we bounce things off each other. But I was fortunate because I didn't know how to deal with any of that, right? And they were able to, especially the one person that was the first one that was in, she definitely helped out, and her and I have been super close since all that happened. When I was able to go back and kind of be emotionally intelligent in terms of how we set things up and how we executed day-to-day thing. So from there, I got thrown up into the 3 shop.
Ew.
And so that was the element. Yeah, well, it actually was really nice, man. And so I'll back up a little bit, right? So before I left 1st Ranger Battalion, I was fortunate enough to attend the SWIC military free fall basic course. And, so I was already Halo qualified whenever I came there. And then when I got up into the 3 shop, I fell into a Whiskey 8 position. Whiskey 8 meaning that you can go jump. Problem is the other company that was there, they were super close hold, right? So there's another selection to be able to go to that specific company. So, going on jumps and stuff like that, it was few and far between, but I was still getting paid. So I still had to jump. And there was a whole bunch of instances where people tried to kick me off of jumps because I wasn't on the team or whatever. And I'm like, hey man, like this is an ass and trash pass. Like it doesn't matter. Like whatever. But I got asked to deploy to Kabul as an engagement team deputy director, meaning I would manage relationships between everybody, man, between Ambassador Bass and his whole crew at the time in Afghanistan, the French, the Norwegians. It was every day suit and tie and a beard, and you just run around and go shake babies and kiss hands and stuff like that. Had a really successful first go with that because I was given the latitude to be able to do what I wanted. We 2019. It's actually in military times. First Battalion, successfully killed 1,900 people in a 100-day rotation. Pretty dope. Man. So come back and I decide that, hey man, like I want to be a part of this other company, and I did the initial assessment for it in September, I think of 18. But it was going to be a whole year before I was able to start the reconnaissance training course, right? We call it RTC. So I wrote on staff, did all the staff stuff, did our air planning syncs, all this other. I had a really good GS civilian counterpart, and we got after a lot of stuff in terms of planning and stuff like that, and then. Man. So, with that, was able to go on a couple jump trips with the teams, and I was basically their, in an ops position for them. Right. So I would DZSO for them. And then, get to go up and jump 8 or 9 times a day if weather dependent and aircraft dependent. From there, I had guys within that specific company that I grew up with.
That's a target.
It was really, it was really close with, right? And we talk about whenever we were in Laurel Ridge, we talked about our index events and stuff like that. So we'd already been jumping for 2 days, and then so the actual teams had they validated day into night or night into day. So I was on the first pass for the morning, and they were going up, and we got the call that there was a collision and a jumper off DZ, and we had to go find him. And 3 hours later, one of my very best friends, someone who our kids grew up together when I was back at First Battalion. He was the first guy that actually greeted me when I walked into my company. He unfortunately was killed in that training accident. And so for me, because I was not considered essential for jumping, they asked me to I was kind of ordered to stay next to his body while I was at the morgue for 3 days before we were able to get him shipped back to Columbus. And I thought of it at the time as an honor to be able to do that. I worked with Fort Huachuca to get his uniform ready and all that stuff, and help put it on his body and stuff like that. Like, what I didn't realize was I was self-inducing trauma,
and and going back and dissecting this a little bit more for people that don't understand. Like, everything in free fall is inherently, everything is dangerous. And when you don't hear that up from, or can't, and someone doesn't come up on comms after canopy control, canopy checks, you're like, instantly your heart starts beating. You don't instantly go to like the smallest issue. Everything always goes to the worst case scenario. No matter who you are, you're always, fuck, what happened? And everybody always says that dive stuff is really dangerous, but we lose more guys every year to free fall incidents. And when you throw in equipment, when you throw in nods, when you throw in O2, and you throw in rapid success and jumps, that's a recipe for even the best guys to have incidents. It's not an easy thing to go there as a team or go there as just, if you're there doing those exercises, you're connected to all those people. You're connected to everybody. Even I've never been disconnected from my own parachute riggers. Like, they've always been good friends. Like, you always have a connection. And when you don't hear that call sign come through, especially if it's daytime and you see that you happen to catch that one sign or two signs that something's really fucked up, that sticks with you. And that in itself, there's trauma right there. There's a whole bunch of issues, but then add in the factor that you know the guy, that you're a close friend, and now you are sitting there with him for 3 days. Yeah, like, and that's arguably something that anybody in regiment or SF would do, because the bonds are that fucking strong. And we think, this is my duty, this is what I need to do. But in reality, it's like, fuck, maybe somebody that's not close, maybe somebody that's not family, maybe somebody that's a little bit further removed can be there to give him that dignified, same amount of care and comfort. For those people involved,
that's one of those hindsight is 2020 kind of things. Because I promise you, if you're you or Paul, and they ask for somebody to sit there and manage that whole situation, regardless of how close we are, in a heartbeat.
But the way it normally works out is leadership. If things are properly followed and notified, it's like, oh shit,
step in and
Ranger D, and that's a thing that I have seen, and I can't take away from command. There's been situations, and they know not to have, Timothy von Dittelhauer stay there with his best friend. They know those guys were super close. And they're like, nah, man, we need him.
Well, yeah. And there's,
just to clarify, that's not a real person.
So, I don't believe
you anymore.
Or is it?
Before Ranger D dives in, I just want to clarify for those that aren't watching, when I said fuck Arizona, I have the state flag tattooed on my chest. I was born and raised there, and I still say fuck Arizona. So, proceed.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So there were a couple other things, and I'll touch on a couple other things, right? So it's I got jaded by that specific company when I overheard the team sergeant saying, "Hey, like, we're getting ready to deploy. We don't have anybody to escort the body hump because they're going to have to shave." And when I overheard that, I flipped the fuck out, man. I was drunk, dude. Like, so I text the battalion sergeant major, and I was like, "Hey, if this was anybody else in ACO, and I'm, close to, the guys from ACO 175 that died or whatever, that was a deployment before I showed up. I was like, if anybody was asked to escort a body home, they would be fighting for the chance to do that, right?" So I flipped the fuck out on the team sergeant. Tried to fight the ops dude. Tried to fight one of the other ops dudes in the parking lot of the fucking Hilton.
Nice.
In right outside of Tucson. And I told the sergeant major, I was like, you know what? If they don't want to do it, I would love to do it. Right. So, gave authorization to on-post housing for my sergeant major to go into my house, grab my ASUs, and he flew out to where we were in Arizona. And I was lucky and honored to be able to escort his body home the proper way. And Delta Airlines were phenomenal with that, with helping with everything and stuff like that, right? Well, so my sergeant major showed up. I was like, hey man, that same week I found out that my youngest son in Savannah had scoliosis, like really bad. So I kind of told the sergeant major, I was like, hey, I don't know, I don't think this is for me. I'm good and everything, but I don't think that I think I need to get back to my son. Would I be able to go to RAS 2, which is our reassessment and selection course? So every level, if you're going to go take a platoon, you have to be reassessed. If you're going to take a company, you have to be reassessed, and that's just part of our culture of accountability. So I was like, hey, I'm willing to go to RAS 2 if I can take a platoon back at 175. And he was like, hey man, great. Can you deploy for me pretty quick? Because the first sergeant of that company was deployed in the same position that I was prior to my last deployment. And I was like, hey man, I'm slotted for free fall jump master. I don't really want to miss that. I was like, he's like, all right, well, that's in like 2 weeks. It's like, you go crush that, and then I'll give you 4 days if you can get on a civilian flight and fly into Kabul. So free fall jump master, man. I was hands down the first person in the history of the Yuma course to pop a main during JMPI. Well, I mean, Rangers lead the way.
That's
right?
valid.
So
questionable.
That's what I always say. Yeah, dude. Yeah, dude. So I was, dude. I mean, Cab, you've been through it where they have the GoPros and everything. And he said I gorilla gripped when I was doing my place, whatever, proper pocket two switch ball, whatever it is. When I did two switch
remember
balls,
when you
I pulled, I actually
gripped my balls. But proceed with your story.
Yeah, and you opened up just like the parachute. When I spun him around. So I spun the parachute around. The whole main dumps on the floor, and I was like, and you know how like you call the efficiency. I was like, I didn't do that, and I kept going through the whole
balls
sequence,
on this
and then went to the next jumper. Bro, just kept going. I was like, I didn't do that, and then we went back and reviewed the tape, and I was like, I didn't gorilla. I was like, all right, whatever, fine. That was my. So it took me all 3 chances. So actually, the class leader, he was a 10th group CRIF guy, and then the only female rigger that we had there, and she's actually, when you go and look up the JMPI videos, she is the E5 or E6 that does. You can Google her for like JMPI sequence for the USASOC course. She's the one who's going through the sequence, right? All 3 of us, it took all 3 times, but I ended up getting it on the last one, and then started growing my beard while I was there. That
course is magical. It's so like low threat and easy to learn environment, and they're like, it's the opposite of static line. It's the exact opposite.
Bro, static line jump master. If I could go back, I would rather go back through Ranger School than go through static line jump master.
That.
I tried so hard to go to JM.
Yeah, man.
Because I didn't want to leave Bragg.
Yeah. No. Oh, dude, the advanced airborne course? Yeah, that one's harder than fucking anything else, man. Yeah, dude. So, got done with that, successfully graduated, barely. And then 4 days later, I was on an Emirates flight flying into Kabul to go back to do the same thing. And it was super weird because I was flying civilian.
Everybody's just
like, flew on the
making weird
inside
eye
of
contact with
Kabul
you.
Airport. And like,
Who's Malakbach?
well, no, dude. So everything was
Must
what was
be
funny is I had I was on medications, right? Like I prescribed medications, right? So I had a layover in Dubai, and I looked at I enrolled on the STEP program or whatever for travel, and the rule was if you had any medications, it had to be approved by the Ministry of Medicine 30 days out, and I'm about to leave tomorrow, right? So I was supposed to like lay over in London, fly to Dubai, stay a night, and then fly straight into Kabul. So I had to go to my S4 civilian dude, and I was like, "Hey, bro, and I looked at some of the horror stories. Like, there's like merchant marines, like all these other people that are in jail right now there because they put anything more than ibuprofen that's identifiable as ibuprofen, and they will throw you in Dubai, fuck me in the ass prison
if Fauci was your guy,
for months." I was like, "Hey, yeah, oh yeah, definitely." Yeah, man. So he did some S4 magic, and I got unfortunately I had to go to Paris for the day.
On this podcast, we love to
yeah, dude. So I had already done a Paris trip the year before. Yeah, man. So I stayed overnight in Paris, and they upgraded me on my Emirates flight flying into Dubai. So I had like my own pod. And then, like, I could push a button and be like Scotch, and they would just bring me Scotch.
So you went to heaven,
or push the button, whatever I needed.
You went to heaven.
It was awesome. But what's that? In Arabic,
if they bring Scotch on demand,
maybe I don't know what that's
whatever
called.
you want it to be. You're muted. So you keep talking, but I can't hear.
Yeah. So.
No, you're good. You're good. Cab, however,
wait, am I muted?
Keeps talking. Can't hear shit.
Yeah.
He's muted.
Yeah, he is muted. Yeah, man. So flew in, and then on that last leg going into Kabul, I had a bunch of contractors with me, and they were like, "Hey, man, do you have a visa?" And I was like, "No." And they were like, "Well, do you have orders?" I was like, "I mean, yeah, I have a visa exemption thing." But they were like, "What passport are you using?" And I'm like, "Well, I have my red and my blue one." So I show up to the terminal, and one of the contractors was like, "Hey, man, if any of these dudes start like getting froggy, they're gonna want us to jump on them, right?" So I'm scanning them around. I'm like looking around. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure."
He pulls out a picture. He's like, "Wait a second, I know you as well."
I'm like, "Hey, yeah, dude." Like, it was just super sketch, man. And so I get up to the front desk to make it in, right? And I had my my embassy badge with the red stripe. I had my old expired RS badge, and my military ID.
You don't listen to any of the rules. You're not supposed to keep any of those.
Visa exempt, right? Well, I lucked out, right? So I show up, and I'm like, he was like, "Where's your papers?" And he's smoking a cigarette and shit in the lobby or whatever. So I hand over my visa exemption document, right? And he was like, and I'm thinking in my head, this dude can't read, right? Like, it doesn't matter, right? So I'm like, I show him my military CAC, and it said uniform services, and I wasn't like I had a beard. I was, looking like one of your people, in a suit. And he's like, "Uniform, you're not in uniform." And I'm like, and then I show him my blue badge, and he was like, "What is this?" And then I show him my RS badge that's expired, and he was like, "Oh, RS?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, RS." And he was like, he just did the little hand wave, like, "Oh, you're good. Ugh. And of course, you show up, and there's some random guy that wants $20 to be able to grab your bags for you or whatever. So I just threw him some petty cash, and my commander met me on that side of the house, and then we rolled over, and yeah, man, we got after it as soon as I touched ground, man. Like, the guy that I replaced, he was out with on another mission. Like he just was putting himself out there with other people. And, one of his snipers like got shot in the head and all this other stuff. And I'm like, he survived. So the bullet fragmented, and just kind of cut his eye open a little bit. But it was a daytime rod, with, some, the IC partners and stuff. And, so when I get there, I'm like, hey, where's Dave at? And they were like, oh, he's out with, that group of people. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to be doing that shit too. And my commander, he's from like, Southie, right? He's like, no, Smith, no, the fuck you're not fucking going out like him. You're not fucking doing that. No. I was like, hey, I mean, are you going to stop me? He was like, look, it'll be a discussion, with everything. All right. We just got to fucking talk about it. All right. I'm like, all right, cool, man. So he came back, we did our handover and all this other stuff. That was a really quick, it was like maybe 2.5 months. And then I came back, prepped for, RAS 2, went through RAS 2, and, in the middle of that, so one of the key things that I remember, right? So that they do a safety board meeting where the safety inspector.
Is he dressed in all white?
He talks
like
about
a formal uniform and like
I hope so.
He talked about.
I am the
safety. He's a bald guy.
He's got like a curly mustache. All right.
No, he had like really thick
look
glasses.
Through my Rolodex of discrepancies.
Yeah, dude. So he starts talking about the whole incident with my buddy that got killed, and I feel my blood pressure go up, right? Because it's basically, the Army always has to blame somebody, right? So it's like, oh well, they didn't have GPS and they didn't have GPS trackers, they didn't have this, they didn't have that. And I was like, hey, that wasn't in a fucking SOPs. I like stood up and I called him out, and I realized right then, hindsight, I realized, hey, like, I got some anger shit I need to deal with, right? Like, and because I didn't give a fuck who this dude was, and at that point in time, like, my whole thing was, I want to tell the right story because I was there,
and you have that connection.
Like, I fucking was one of the people that was right there when we found his body, and you know what I mean? So like, I was fucking
I've
pissed.
never
I'm known for having a resting bitch face, right? So I go in,
I would rest on your
go into the board. The fuck are you talking about? Yes. Yeah, dude. So in my final board, it's Colonel Klepper. So he's currently the 173rd Brigade Commander. There wasn't a murder board, man. Like I was a thumbs up all the way around. The biggest thing was, he was like, hey man, you gotta understand like how you present yourself, because you look like a really fucking intimidating person. And he's like, I've been in the same boat where, like I had to come up to my commanders and be like, hey, like I may look like I'm pissed off or whatever, but I'm here to work for you. Right. So that was my thing going forward, so then I, cleared out of housing at Fort Benning and, moved back to Savannah, bought a house, was able to be closer to my youngest son, Jack, in Savannah. We figured out, a pathway ahead for his scoliosis and stuff like that. But I showed up and they didn't have a position for me, right? So the sergeant major at the time, I'm not going to say his name, but super country. And so I walk in, I'm like, hey, sergeant major, I'm your new E7, just coming back from STB. And he sees my free-fall jump master wings. I was already master rated static line. He's like, hey man, how long were you in RRC? And I was like, whoa. I was like, I was never in the company. And nope. I was like, I was in ops, like never did anything. He's like, you know what?
Hell yeah.
Recce Platoon Sergeant. That's got your name painted all over it. And I was like, Roger that. And he just spits and dishes it. And then he's like, man, I got 2 days left.
I don't even want to know your name or what you're all about, man, but good luck and shit.
Yeah, dude.
You look like an asshole.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, where was I? All right, yeah. So, we did a quarterly brief saying like, hey, what are what is each platoon doing? And we have in our Delta company, we have our snipers, our K9, our Rista, and then Recce, right? And I said, hey, my guys are doing 109 of the 120 tasks for this school. They have to go to the school. I was like, because if something happens, God forbid, someone gets killed, not talking about them, you work a 15-6 backwards, who's going to eat that? It's not going to be the battalion commander. It's going to be me. It's going to be whoever didn't put them through the training. So I looked my battalion commander in the face during this thing, and I said, hey, sir, you're negligent at best to keep sending our guys out there to go do what they're doing. I was like, I don't think you understand the scope of, like, this. Like, if one person that they are working with is compromised, like, that has national strategic level effects. And I had all these things highlighted, and he didn't even look at it. He slid the paper back to me, and he was like, hey, if you think you can get him into the school, great. He's like, I've been trying for years. I was like, roger that. I got 3 waiver forms that are coming across your desk tomorrow. I already have the slot set up. And he was like, all right, roger that. Right. So, like, but I realized, like, I was super angry about all of that. And I was just constantly churning at work, and I would just come home angry. And how do I deal with that?
Whiskey?
Well, I pet my dog, and then, fifth of whiskey. I'm a big fan of bullet bourbon, dude.
All right, so regardless of what Cap said,
no, Gregory, you're overridden on this one. Overridden. Just a shot across the bow to everybody out there listening. Drinking is not a good.
It's not a
hobby.
good hobby, but
no,
you can't say no. You got to let me finish.
You gotta say it's something that's so counter.
We're all inclusive here.
Greg, that's definitively rape, what you just explained. Don't say no, just let me finish.
Look,
I know that if you're listening, the possibility that you too are dealing with the struggles of getting off the alcohol. And we know it's hard. But
I don't struggle with getting off first.
That's what she said. Anyway, as I was saying, never utilize alcohol as a positive reinforcement for the issues you're going through.
Can I just say that if Ranger D and I ever meet up in person, I would love the opportunity for him to share any kind of bourbon neat together. Is that a problem?
It's like 2 crack addicts like getting together to smoke a rock.
No. Hold on. Stop. Yeah, I was going to say, let's...
Well, we're not going to fuck after. Like, or maybe, I don't know.
It starts with...
a soup kitchen. Yeah. Fucking Tesla.
I mean, dirty back in the boys, yeah.
It starts with, all right, this is some good bourbon, but try this vape.
Ooh.
It's crack.
Yeah, dude. So for me, so each specialty platoon sergeant was aligned with a being in charge of a lot of things and dealing directly with the IC, right? So OGA stuff like that. It's about as far as I'm going to talk about that. But the biggest thing was on the deployment, I was going to be pulled away from my guys, right? All right, yeah, man. So, so we got thrown in quarantine to get ready for the COVID hit and everything. Still was able to get my guys in and out of training. Still did my validation with the IC partners. We were teed up, and the night before. So one of the things was our compound, right? So we have our fence, we call it the brown fence, right? Everything was fenced off, and they put all 700 of us in there for 2 weeks, and provided us food. I mean, Chipotle, dude, they would bring in everything. It was good. We could also have as much booze as we wanted, right? So I got a fucking shit house with a bunch of senior people. And then I went outside and I saw the actual safety report that came back from that incident with Ethan, and it was posted in the Army Times, and I got so fucking angry, dude. Like I remember being so mad, dude. Like I damn near like couldn't go to sleep. I knew my blood pressure was like through the roof.
Those are
at the
all
time.
great
I was on Adderall and testosterone and all this other stuff that I was prescribed.
I boof them.
Yeah, keeps you skinny and stuff. Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, dude. So the next day, I went and I like to do non-traditional shit with my guys, and my platoon was it's pretty much like I'm not going to say it was like an ODA because it's not, but I had 12 E6s and then myself. Obviously, we didn't have a warrant, but we had a lieutenant that was in charge, right? Which is super uncommon, but it was due to the nature of like the sensitivity of the things that we were asked to do. I did yoga with them that morning. It was super hot. May 4th, 2020. And I, went back into the cough area, took a shower, sat there for a second, and started feeling weird, man. I got up and I started walking around, and my heart rate, checked my watch, my heart rate's at 160. My left arm started to hurt. I thought I was having a heart attack. Yeah, dude. And I told one of the boys, I was like, hey, get the medic over here. Give me the medic. And he checked my shit and then checked my pulse rate. And then I started to do a shunt. So like I was losing blood and it was all trying to go to the center. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So they took me to the aid station. And the aid station, like, they're all fucking hungover from the night before.
Oh, Jesus.
They're like blowing off cables for the EKG machine because they don't know how to work it. And they're trying to stick it to me and shit. And it's not sticking. And they're like, hey, man, you need to go to the hospital. So I stayed at 160 for about 7 hours. And they, I was running a marathon the whole time. And they, they hit me with Ativan. And then, I got pulled off the deployment, man. Which, it was unfortunate. But at the same time, I still had to be, the platoon sergeant that was helping out from across the world. But then they started throwing out, I sat down with the psychs a few days after that, and they started throwing out terms like not fit for duty, right? And that's like, when you say that to a person, it's like, well, my pulses or whatever what the Army says whatever it is ones across the board. So I am fit for duty. So what are you saying right now? So that's why, and I would get angry about it. And I didn't give a fuck what rank you were. I didn't give a shit. Especially the med section, dude.
It's crazy how
the med
when
section
somebody
there, now
finally
changed,
says,
but the med section there, dude, was
when you finally get to that breaking
trash.
point and they say, holy shit, this guy can't do it anymore. We have to pull him out. The first thing we say is not like, holy shit, like, okay, let's figure out what's wrong with with my body. Let's figure out what's going on. The first thing all of us always do is, fuck you. You're not putting me on profile. Always, instantly. The very first thing when you can no longer control it, when you can no longer put a mask on it to make it go away.
Yeah.
And somebody's like, hey, man, you're off. You're going back on the bench. The first thing we always react with is anger and how dare you? How fucking dare you? Even if we're the absolute fucking worst, because in our minds, exactly. In our minds, it's like, yeah.
We're not that bad. No, I can handle this. Just give me a day. You know what I mean? Like, right? So, still was helping manage the program, but, started going through cognitive behavioral therapy through my psych. So that was the first start of it, man. And then in October, so that was May, so fast forward to October 2020, got told, hey, man, like, you're good. We're going to give you a platoon. It's going to be your old platoon. So it was the platoon I grew up in, right? So I was like, that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, right? So I was like, holy shit, I'm going to go take over 2 Alpha? You got to be fucking kidding me. And so went right into it. But at the same time, I was still dealing with demons, man. I was still dealing with shit. I was still drinking in excess. And then I decided that the psychological stuff that I was getting from where I was at was not helping. So I reached to an outside source, and I was fully within my reasoning for doing that. And I let my chain of command know. I was having nightmares. Fucking couldn't concentrate so. The other thing is, whenever that incident happened, they took me off all medication, anything that I had. So no more testosterone, no more Adderall, anything. Right. So the second you take away testosterone from somebody who has been on it for 7 years, and therapeutic dose, like I wasn't getting jacked. It is a spiral. It is emotions, sex drive, and then because of the sex, lack of it, then now that's depression, anxiety. It's a fucking monster, man. And the dude, so I went to one endocrinologist, civilian guy who's been doing it for 40 years. And he was like, hey man, like if I try to take you off now, you're probably not going to be back to normal. What I recommend is you split your dose in half so you're not riding the hill up and down. He's like, then it's just a straight line, right? So I bring that back to the MD, and he's
they're
like,
the worst.
Yeah, well, that guy just wants money from the referral, so we're going to send you to a military endo. And I'm like, yeah, and then I go to him, but he's not. Yeah, they're like, yeah, we got a Ranger one. He's up at Eisenhower, right? So I take a day and drive up to fucking Augusta, and I explain to him like what the situation is. He's like, hey man, I need 3 months of labs that show that like you have low tests. So at month 2, when I'm like fucking drinking myself into oblivion every time I come home and like half-ass taking care of my dog who's high maintenance. I love you. I finally called him and I was like, hey man, like I can't keep doing this. Like either y'all put me back on what I was prescribed or I'm going to go to the streets and I'm going to go find it. And it's the same shit.
I want to see
So,
the
like, those are
mid to
your
low
options,
level pusher.
Right? Like, I mean, they're my options, but like that's what you do.
Yeah, what's up,
Clearly,
man?
you have been to El Paso.
What you looking for, huh?
I also want to see.
Nah, dude, that's a conversation for another
testosterone,
day.
please. Yeah, I got that.
Yeah. So they finally put me back on it. So that the military endocrinologist, after 6 months of waiting, literally said the same thing. He was like, yeah, if he comes off of it, it's going to fuck him. So put him on, half dose once a week. And I'm like, holy shit. It's almost like the guy who did it for 40 years is on par with the kid who just got out of fucking college, that's like a 27-year-old fucking whatever. It's crazy, isn't it? So they put me back on it, and then I started seeing a psychiatrist. I was put on Prazosin, Xanax, and there was another one, Atarax, Strattera, and that was because the Strattera was supposed to replace Adderall.
That's also what made me gain weight.
All that shit did was make me gain weight, and I was just like, whatever.
People don't understand that's the first
Never
spot,
heard of
man.
it. That's why I'm fat
all
now.
the wiener, dude. Like
that's the first spot that a man gains weight, right to his wiener. It's
not mine. My wiener's still shriveled.
Yeah. So got cleared. Yeah.
Only on the side.
Don't elaborate. Just let it go.
Just the base,
Shut
so
up,
it's
Paul.
totally useless, too. It's a big, fat, huge base.
Shut up, Paul.
Yeah, man. So
disgusting.
This is all serious until we got to wieners, and now it's just falling apart.
But it's not the good fat that the doctor tells you about. It's the adipose
It's
tissue
the stomach
right
fat
around
that
the
covers
base.
my wiener.
So
I
your
have a
penis
pouch.
has a pouch.
yeah,
You gotta get a special
it's
girdle.
it's not the avocado fat.
That's why they make those new boxers. Our next sponsor is a company called Sheath that has a special department for both your guys.
Your dick ends up looking like Wilford Brumley after an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Invented by an Iraqi war vet who just felt too hot and sweaty.
Diabetes. Oh yeah.
Yeah, did y'all ever get issued those the Kevlar underwear? Oh, dude, those are the worst. The absolute fucking worst. Anyways, yeah, dude. So went through the training cycle, man, on all those meds, and then we started pushing all the E6s and E7s through a program called SPAR. It's like Special Operations Active Recovery or whatever. I ended up going to it after Laurel Ridge. So I did my initial intake, and the MD's like, "Hey, man, I see you're on all this medication. Like, what's the deal?" And I was like, "Hey, man, you've been taking my labs once a month for 6 months. Like, you knew, you could see that I had these meds. Like, what do you mean?" And he's like, "Well, I saw it before, but I just didn't, like, I just want to know what the deal is." I'm like, "Dude, I'm dealing with some fucking shit, man. Like, wait, I've told you this. Like, I fucking told you this over and over, man." So he was like, "Hey, man, so here's the deal. Like, theater policy, if you're going to be on something like this, you have to have a waiver." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm on testosterone. I've deployed 3 times on it. Like, I know what the theater policy is. So just add that to the waiver and we're good." And he was like, "Yeah, man, no, you're good, man. Like, just keep taking it. Like, you seem to be doing all right." We did our whole training cycle, dude. We jumped 8 fucking times in 2 months, and then TFT back to back.
Well, don't come to my house.
Fucking validation. It was just nonstop. Just run you into the ground, fuck me in the ass, and then take it again the next day. And well, I'm used to it, so I'm good. Yeah, man. So a week later, I get brought in and get told, "Hey, man, you can't shoot a gun. You can't jump out of airplanes. You can't do any of that shit. You've been on Xanax?" And I'm like, "Wait, hold on. I'm sorry, sir. You what?" He's like, "You literally, what did you just tell me last week?" And he was like, "Look, I understand what I told you." He's like, "I was wrong." And I was like, "Okay, that's cool that you're admitting that you're wrong and you're accepting accountability for it. But what's that costing my fucking company?" So I was like, "No, fuck this. I want a whiteboard session. I want to sit down with you and the company commander and the PA and the first sergeant, and we're going to talk through this." It's like, because you're about to fuck ACO hard. And they were like, "All right, cool." So I sat there and whiteboarded out timeline wise, right? Now, so let me back up a little bit, right? So that was later on in 2021. So 2020 November, drunken night. After getting done with doing whatever, man, and
another professor.
I was not with Dr. Professor Murphy at the time.
Yeah, please don't, because Dr. Professor Murphy's the only one.
Things were not. No, I'm not gonna. I will keep her out of it. She is, yeah. And that's when we kind of start. Me and Dr. Professor Murphy kind of started talking, but not really. Either way, spinning the Glock 19 around, taking shots, drinking and shit. And, I kind of thought, hey, maybe the world would be a better place without me. Right. And then I caught myself in that moment and I was like, all right, you need to fucking reach out to somebody. I didn't. So the only person that I knew, or foundation that I knew that would keep it away from the unit was the All Secure Foundation, right? Through Tom and Jen Satterley. Tom he's a Mogadishu vet. That was his first mission as a Delta operator. And then, all the way up to capturing Saddam. Like the dude went through a lot of shit. And then him and his wife, they run the foundation of, dealing with PTSD and trauma and MST and all the different things and stuff like that. So I reached out to him and I was like, "Hey man, like I'm in a dark spot." And within 6 hours, he responded back to me, got me linked in with Stacy Stone, who was their counselor. He's like, "Hey man, we're gonna get you some free sessions and shit like that." So during my validation, I'm at Fort Campbell and I'm validating my dudes on fast rope. And what's funny is they're always wanting to come in at 20 feet, right, and just dump the rope out, right. And so I'm sitting there on the radio. I push over to the fucking Arsola line, and I'm like, "Hey, push it up to 40 feet." And he's like, "Hey, your boys in the back are giving me a thumbs down." And I was like, "I'm dad. I don't give a fuck what they say. Push it up to 40 feet." Because like nobody ever like roping from 20 feet. I might as well jump off the back of the fucking bird. Like it doesn't matter. Anyways, but in the middle of that, I told my PL, I was like, hey sir, I need you to take over. I got to take this phone call. And I walked out in the middle of a field in Fort Campbell and got on a knee and sat there and called and talked to Stacy Stone. And that was like one of the most groundbreaking things for me in terms of understanding my anxiety and putting a name to it and stuff like that. Right. So I think that was probably the first point of my healing process. And it's still ongoing. Right. So, all right, we fast forward to doing the whiteboard session, and the MD looks at me, and I was like, hey, I'm on Xanax, whatever. He's like, hey, just look, we can get you off that. Just give us the pills you have. We'll see how everything plays out over the weekend. And all of a sudden, and I look at him, I'm like, I'm sorry, what? I was like, you realize, like, if I just stop taking this cold turkey, like, I could have a seizure and die, right? You understand that, right? And he was like, well, how much are you taking? I was like, I'm not taking anything over what's prescribed. And you know that. And he was like, I was like, look, no, fuck that. I was like, I will go through my civilian psychiatrist who's put people on this med and taken them off for 40 years. So I'm going to go through him. I'll titrate down and we'll work it from there. I was like, I have lost faith and trust in you to be a medical person. And he's like, well, I'm sorry that you feel that way. And then my first sergeant, super stoic, like the epitome of a Ranger NCO, then he started getting a little bit hot about the whole situation. And that, like, that because now it's not just me as a platoon sergeant. You can't replace a platoon sergeant. It's like now the whole platoon, we get cut from the deployment. So all these guys that work their fucking asses off for me, man. And, so I had to, my biggest, like, one of the lowest points in my life, man, but I had to do it was walk in front of my platoon of 47 dudes and tell them, like, hey, check it out. This is the deal. We're not going to deploy as a platoon. Y'all aren't going to deploy right now. I have to address some personal things. And what I'll tell each one of you, don't wait 15 years to start taking care of yourself. What are your questions? And they were like, hey, they all raised their hand. A bunch of dudes raised their hand. They were like, hey, if you need anything from us, you let us know. We're there for you. You've been fucking phenomenal for us. Which felt, good. So I go into therapy. So I was seeing one of the doctors.
Hey, real quick, are you drumming on your...
We had a 160th one, and then he PCS, so I switched over to a civilian.
You leave its ticks alone.
And that fucking cunt.
It just fucked the entire recording session.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
No,
sorry.
No,
I'll take care of it, but I'm like...
Good, bro. You're good.
Yeah, so... yeah.
Why do you make my life so...
God damn, are we have to start from the beginning? I'm just glad my dog hasn't freaked out yet. So was going to the psych, and she was like, I was like, hey, can I see you more than once every 2 weeks? And she was like, well, I don't know, she's like, I'll think about it. I was like, look, I just feel like I need to talk to somebody more. She's like, okay, I'll think about it, but I'll see you again in like 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, cool. So 2 weeks later, show up, and I'm like, I'm sucking, man. Like, no medication, no whatever, just drinking myself into oblivion every day. And I asked her again. I was like, hey, like, so what do you think about seeing me once a week instead of once every other week? And she was like, you know what? I think I'm not giving you what you need. Have you ever thought about going inpatient? And I was like, no, but what does that mean? She was like, yeah, you'd go inpatient, you'd be able to have like intense therapy, blah, blah, blah. There's a place called Laurel Ridge. And I was like, well, can you not see me more than once a week? Like, is that the problem? And she was like, I just don't think I'm giving you the care that you need right now. And I was like, all right, fuck
poor
it.
spider.
So 3 days later.
Oh, god damn. Give it some bourbon.
Sorry,
It'll be your best friend. It kills bugs.
So 3 days later, fuck that spider. They don't sell bourbon on Sundays here. Yeah, dude. So, 3 days later, you saw me stumble into Laurel Ridge. Yeah, man. So, did 26 days there. Met all the phenomenal people that we've been able to keep this relationship going for a year now, man. And when I came back from that, went into spar, and so that specific counselor therapist was like, "Hey, like you're drinking too much, and there's drugs involved and shit." She was like, "I think you need to go to ASAP." Blah blah blah. And the thing is like I can always put alcohol down. That's not ever been an issue for me. And I think we tried to record some sessions before, and I wanted to do this one to make sure that like I recorded it, not drinking. And that's not an issue for me. And so the thing is like I come back and her biggest thing is like, well, there wasn't an incident, but you need to go to ASAP and go through that therapy. And I was like, you have 2 teams of doctors from Laurel Ridge, from SPAR, that literally say in their notes, there's no need for alcohol recovery or anything like that. Like he needs to address moral trauma, the trauma that, and all this other stuff. So the second session that I had with her, I was like, hey, I'm going to fire you. I'm not dealing with you anymore. Like I'll wait until I get another therapist. Right. And put me in a weird spot because I still needed the behavioral health stuff, because little do people know is if you go inpatient, you're supposed to be on profile for a year before you can do anything else. Right. My chain of command looked out for me in that, I sat down with my sergeant major and I was like, hey, look, I'm not going to take, I was offered a company in the intelligence battalion and all this other stuff. I was like, look, I'm not doing that, man. Like I'm done doing Ranger stuff. Like I had a great time here, gotten everything that I needed, had great leadership, but at the same time, like it's taxing on me. I would like to go to a place that, I can be closer to my oldest son. I've been out of his life for 10 years, so I got teed up to go to Army Features Command, which is, downtown Austin, Texas, 7th Street. But with that, they kind of held the orders over my head. Right. And I'm not going to name names or anything like that. Like, because I still think the commander and sergeant major did it for a good reason, in that I'm representing Ranger Regiment wherever I go. Right. So if I show up and I'm still fucked up and not, having issues and stuff like that, they wanted to make sure that I was stable going forward. So I don't knock them for that. It just was super trying on me. But maybe that was the tribulation that I needed to go through at that time to be able to get to where I'm at now, right? Got handed EIB as the NCOIC or whatever. So what they said was, hey, we're going to decrease your amount of mental health stuff and increase your workload to see how you do. And I'm like, cool, man, whatever. So ran EIB, it was all successful. Got another RCOM or whatever. And that day, like, commander was refusing to sign the levy packet for my orders. And that day, like, he signed them, and I got my orders. And then, here I am today. There's still some work I need to do. But, the new job it's super weird, man. There's nothing but general officers in my office. My supervisor's a GS-14. My compadre's a 13. There's no Joe. There's no privates. There's no nothing. It's like I work on the 19th floor of a University of Texas Systems building in downtown Austin, right? So super chill, super relaxed. I've been able to
and that's huge, man.
Spend
That's
more time with my son.
That's
I think in the last month or two.
The big thing that I want people to take away
in the last 3 or 4 years
from your story is when you come up to that wall, when you hit that obstacle that, I'm a big fan of Ryan Holiday. The obstacle is the way. But when it comes to mental health, when you can't ignore it anymore, that's not what obstacle is the way is about. When you are at your lowest point where you can't go any further, you have to reevaluate your life, reassess it, and figure out, hey, realistically,
right? Yeah.
Maybe I can't be the guy that's constantly running and gunning. Maybe I need to reevaluate, get help, realign my priorities with my values, and put actual work into making my life better. And I think your journey is a freaking testament to that, and like the benefits of it. Like you're there, you now see the benefit of being closer to your kids, having a job that isn't, metaphorically or killing you, but also in real world. Like, yeah, it's not. You need to walk away, man.
Bro, it is. Dude, I would go home from work so exhausted. Like, it would just be like, I felt like I was
Welcome
at
to working at
Raiders
McDonald's.
for fucking 10 years,
That's how
dude.
McDonald's employees feel nowadays.
Fuck, man,
Okay,
just give me whatever we can swap out from an MRE, and I'll bang a rain real quick. And
total joke. It's not the same fucking thing.
Yeah, I did fast food for a long time. Yeah, man. So, yeah, dude. So, I realized, me and Dr. Professor Murphy kind of talked about, I'm still starting to have some anger issues and stuff like that. Like the 15th of March was the anniversary of my buddy getting killed. I posted some stuff on LinkedIn and stuff like that, more of a remembrance of things, because I think that's one of the big things in our unit, anyways, or my old unit, and that people don't like. We memorialize, right? So we have actually a KA bracelet ceremony. So whoever was in that position, whenever that person died, you take that bracelet that stays locked up in the battalion headquarters. Take that bracelet forward with you, and you wear that because that was the call sign that he was. You know what I mean? Like so I think like memorializing stuff like that, and then like for my first deployment, the 4 guys that we lost, you can't walk around Third ID anywhere and find anything about them, right? But you walk in the halls of ACO 175, and you're going to see pictures on the walls all the way down before you even get into
which is good and bad.
Everybody from
you have to remember, honor, and
everybody that we lost.
Always
throughout the years.
Remember
like
the people that came before you and the sacrifices made. But at the same time, if you know that is a trigger, you don't have to walk through that front entryway at battalion and not acknowledge all that. Like you have.
Right. You're right. Yeah. Oh, dude, man. And so Chris Slees, man. So that was a big one for me, man. Me and him came to 1st Battalion together, and they called him the 12 Bravo that could do it all, right? So he was an engineer, sapper, and Ranger qualified. Called him Silver Fox. He came in a little bit later, and the dude could literally do anything. Like they put him in an infantry platoon sergeant position, he crushed it. They made him the mortar platoon sergeant, right? Like he's a fucking 12 Bravo, right? So they sent him to fucking MLOC, and like he got qualified and literally like crushed everything put in front of him, man. And unfortunately, it was the joint IC mission that he was a GFC for that. Like, he ended up in the midst of doing it, like working a Moscow, saving I don't know how many indig and whoever else he saved. Like he ended up getting killed, man. And like, this last week was like honoring a Medal of Honor recipients, man. Like that was a big one for me, man. Like him and I, that was when I was in purgatory for the whole investigation thing. I was up in the 3 shop, and him and I were side by side every day, man. Like I got a bunch of funny stories about him and I almost fucking shit up accidentally. But yeah, man. For me, it's I've my Jennifer, kind of noted that I haven't been seeing a therapist. I haven't been able to, right? So because I was scared that if I was to ask for more help, then that would delay my PCS, right? I didn't play a game, but I kind of did, because the goal was to get closer to my son, and that's what really matters.
You don't have to worry about that, because I know a certain website that can give you all sorts of resources that you can click on, and it'll take you directly to the place and individuals that can give you treatment outside of the military loop and give you all the care. No, not Pornhub, Greg. Go to securityhalt.com, go to resources.
Same thing.
And you can find tons
of resources. Yeah.
Pornhub.
No, God, I have to edit so much now.
Where
I don't remember.
Where did that main
that's
picture?
another
I asked you
addiction
that
we
in
should
our
tackle
group
at some
chat.
point.
We
and
do need to
the
talk about
debilitating
addiction to
effect of
porn.
that.
We
Yeah.
really should talk
Yeah.
about it because
Actually,
it's the best website ever.
Let's
that
do
Pesh
that.
Art?
We got to talk about that because
It
that
was
is not this episode.
That's a
this
whole
is
podcast
winding
on
down.
its own.
oh, I can. All right.
Yeah.
That would be, yeah.
No, I got that picture.
Hey, so if we're gonna do that, then Dr. Professor
provided
Murphy
it. I
has
think
to come
maybe
on too
Eric
because
or
there
Ryan.
is.
I got pictures from everybody.
Well, we'll talk about that later.
It's Idaho. It's
Yeah.
gateway to
I was
the
like, dude, I feel like I was there
Well,
before, and I was like, man, like, and then you never answered me back, and I was like, well, fuck you then. All right, whatever. Yeah, well, could be. Yeah, man. So yeah, dude. So I got linked up again with the All Secure Foundation. I'm going to start therapy back with Stacey Stone, and Stacey Stone is talked about in the All Secure book and Jen's book, Arsenal of Hope. So yeah, my journey's not over. I'm in a better place now than I was. So I'm linking that up. I'm talking to a psychiatrist later this week, and then, so I'm on the right path. Just need to
trauma has a way of affecting us.
A couple directions and address things. Some other things.
It's in our DNA. Like I always say, you got to go back. You got to start with
dude.
How the body keeps score and read and see the true effect of trauma and how your past, your childhood, everything's connected, and your journey is ever over.
Oh. Dude, that book was life changing for me, man. Like that's what I think. And I told actually Jen Satterley this yesterday. I was like, that book is like kind of what triggered me into.
Oh yeah,
not necessarily like thinking suicidal thoughts, but I'm like starting to understand that like it's the little things that we push through during deployments and the things that we saw and we were like, all right, I saw this, we assessed it, but what we have to do is get to yes on this. Like we have to get medevac the student. We have to get the student out. It doesn't matter that, we have to do a cry. He's fucking, we have to stop his bleeding fucking because he's double amputee. It's the fact that like, hey, let's try and stop the bleeding, but we need to get this bird in. We need to do this. We had like, so then you go into compartmentalization and you forget about all that shit. And then once the bird's gone and he's at the next level of care, he or she, then it's like, all right, fuck, man, now what? Right. And then you get chill or whatever. And you don't actually, and that was kind of one of the things, with Ethan, man, like when he got killed, when I dealt with that, I immediately, 4 days, they came back, turned in my TDY voucher, went right back to Yuma.
Yeah.
Right into Free Fall JM, right? Stopped that 4 days later, right into a deployment. And then from there, right into RAS 2, right? So it was like, I never took the time to process any of that shit at all. And then because I didn't address it and I didn't understand it, I just thought that was how things were because I'm surrounded by people who have gone through that. And now I've been a voice for a lot of people.
And that's actually the overall mission here.
Help. And if I can help one person, like me telling my story.
Can't thank you enough for coming on the show and sharing your story, Ranger D.
Great. Then I
hope you can come back on later on and joke and tell us some more stories. But
that's all we
thank you so much for coming on, man. Just a remarkable resource for everybody.
No, man.
Before I go, I want to say we have big things coming up for exactly that same book you were talking about. I found a bulk ordering website for The Body Keeps a Score. And because I feel that it's so influential, I am dumping a lot of money into buying that in bulk and start sending that out through the website. So stand by. We're gonna pump that book, and we're gonna keep going to LinkedIn and fucking harassing the author. I'm not gonna drop his name because if he hears that, he can probably.
Yeah.
Drop his name.
Oh, because I just started LinkedIn. I just started it. I didn't have LinkedIn until I went to the STAR
Hey, so
program.
how is it that?
Yeah.
How is it that we just now became friends on LinkedIn today?
I owe it to Irv Thompson in his book Mission Transition.
I was like,
what the
fuck? Where has Denny been this whole time?
God, I forget the name of the. No, yeah. Well, that's the problem. I can't remember things, but vocational therapy. I owe it to all those counselors and people who invested the time to show me that if you look into LinkedIn and start talking to people there, you can build a network and get yourself set up for your next chapter, for your next endeavor. It's social media, but it's social media with a purpose. It's getting you connected with people that not only want to help you achieve more, but want to get you into those hard to find jobs that we know we want to do, but we don't know exactly what they are. We didn't. Yeah. I always thought
you make me want to jump back onto LinkedIn.
You have to realize that you have options available. You don't have to contract. You don't have to go do a federal job if you don't want to. And there are millions of people, millions of organizations that want you to succeed. But I'm going to shut my mouth so we can talk about it more on the next episode. But so with that being said,
Gatorade bottle that thing, man.
Sure, it didn't happen.
Thank you so much for joining us on this part 2 conclusion of Ranger D's Tales and Good Deeds. So everybody out there, have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Love you, bye.
Ooh.